Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Today is Monday, February 23rd. This is a regular scheduled hearing of the Falls Church City Council. Welcome to all of you, and especially our guests from Cub Scout pack number. Okay. I won't forget it. I won't forget it at all. Thanks for coming out, guys. We appreciate it. It's good to see you all here. They were here a little bit earlier and got to sit up here and speak to Councilman Duncan and our clerk and maybe some others as well. So thanks for coming by, everyone. It's good to see you. Before the night's over, maybe we can get you up front here and you can meet all the people on City Council, okay? So why don't we go ahead and get started, and we'll do that in just a couple minutes. If we can, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Baruch,
Here.
Ms. Conley,
Here.
Mr. Duncan,
Here.
Ms. Oliver,
Here.
Mr. Snyder,
He will be here, I think, a bit late, but he is coming this evening.
okay, and Mr. Z,
Here.
Mayor Tarter.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, do we have any proclamations this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. How about any oaths to administer to new board and commission members?
Is there anybody here to take an oath? No, sir.
Okay. And public comments. We do have a few speakers who have turned in their speaker slips. If anyone else who's not turned in a speaker slip would like to speak, you can fill out one of these yellow slips of paper with your name and address and hand them on up to our clerk, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. If you can, when you come to the podium, state your name and address, and again, you can speak for 3 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and take our speakers. Meredith Morrison is our first speaker, followed by Mr. Gittens, Tom Gittens. Welcome. Thank you for coming out. Any questions? Thank you so much for coming out this evening. I look forward to this wonderful event on April 11th. Thank you so much. Our next speaker and last speaker currently signed up is Mr. Tom Gittens. Tom? Welcome. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Turner, members of the council.
Well, this is a fantastic guide. I was browsing through, and I think I received one. Did these go out in the mail as well?
Yes, they have come in the mail, not only inside the city of Falls Church, but on the outskirts of the city of Falls Church as well. 20,000 were published, and while the majority are being distributed through mail now, and to the businesses, they will be distributed throughout the year at places like the City Hall, the library, and other businesses.
It's a fantastic guide. It's a great service to the community as well.
Thank you, and along with Meredith, who is local, and we had her do this locally. Nick Gatz, who is also local, helps actually make the guide what it is. The art director, CSI published it, local. The cover, specifically the cover of the guide, the picture was taken by Gary Mester.
I see a few familiar faces as well in the guide. I guess, Phil, you probably weren't far to go to make a sale on this.
Mr. Mayor, I had to compete with the compelling and persuasive letter penned by you on the second page. So I had to buy my way in, though. I'm sure you got there for free.
We got some nice pictures. We got Mr. Duncan on page 59, Mr. Clinton back here also on page 59, and Jody, is she here as well? Do I see her back there? Yeah, she's on page 58. So it's a great guide and a great service, and we're delighted that you all produced this.
Well, I thank you for your letter.
Okay, Mr. Z?
Thank you, Mayor Tardy. I just want to draw everyone's attention to the cost of this guide on the bottom right, which is, you've said, and I heartily agree with it, it's priceless.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for this.
Both for coming out tonight and for all your service to the community. So we'll see you at First Fridays and some other events, I'm sure, coming up. So thank you both. Thank you, Meredith, as well. Good to see you. All right, take care. Is the audio working, Ms. Heath, do you know? The sound? Okay. Okay, let's go on, unless there are any other people who wish to speak tonight. Are there any written comments, Madam Clerk?
We had 3 letters from the Village Preservation Improvements Society Board of Directors, a copy of a letter sent to Lincoln Properties concerning retaining the name of the reserve at Tinner Hill because it reflects our local and cultural history. There was a copy of a letter to the Planning Commission regarding priorities for downtown investments from water sale proceeds, including repairing irrigation systems, replanting beds with appropriate species, replacing non-standard light poles and arms, adding water taps and electrical outlets, moderately enhancing the downtown park within its current footprint, adding a traffic island near Applebee's, and additional light poles of the Broad Street streetscape style. We also had a letter from VPIS generally supporting the neighborhood traffic calming update and raising 2 items that studies should be initiated by the CACT and that should provide traffic calming as part of the development process for new developments. We have a little typo in my copy, but we'll fix that. Rohini Winters, 324 Grove Avenue, copied the City Council on a letter to the Planning Commission in support of a new turf field at the high school and asking for a reassessment of the landscaping at West End Park to make sure that light and noise pollution from Broad Street to the homes on Grove Avenue is addressed. Todd Friedlander of Hillwood Avenue shared two ideas he thinks could benefit Falls Church. One was to study the cost to bury all power lines in the next 10 to 30 years, and to work with a company that has developed a non-pesticide means of controlling mosquitoes. And then I did have a call from Amy Castillas of 117 East Columbia Street, and she called in support of replacing the high school turf field.
Thank you very much. And before we go on to council request, why don't we go ahead and get our Cub Scout friends up? Would you guys like to come up and maybe get your picture taken with City Council? All right, come on up then.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for coming out and seeing us. Look forward to seeing more of you all. Are there any council requests? Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Mayor, I sent a note around through the manager. I'm not sure if we had a chance to get it out to everybody about the Budget and Finance Committee meeting tomorrow night, which is scheduled. But the item, after talking with Mr. LeCondre, that we had for new business was the real estate information, which has just been passed out to us in memo form. So the default is that we would go ahead with that meeting, but if there is a desire to cancel this month's meeting, that would be okay with me, unless there's things that people want to discuss. I'm happy to be there if you need be. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I mean, unless there's anything pressing, I think we're going to have our work cut out for us shortly. So I would suggest that we may actually need additional meetings between once the school board adopts their budget and then hands it over to Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields, what is the time frame between when the school board adopts and when you present your budget to us?
Well, I've been told today that it's very unlikely the school board's going to adopt a budget request tomorrow, and so they will do that at their next meeting. So I would anticipate about a week prior to my presentation to the city council that we'll have a school board request.
I would suggest maybe having a meeting before, in between, if we can squeeze that in between when the school board adopts and then when the city manager presents his budget beforehand. Mr. Shields looking at me like it's a crazy idea.
Well, I would just say, you know, with this, we have a very small finance department, and we don't have a budget office. And so when we are in that last week prior to presentation, it's pretty much all hands on deck just to produce the document. And so I guess one concern I would have is that if we had a meeting in which there was a request for information and analysis, the resources that we would have available for that.
No, that's not how I'm viewing it, but more of just so at least the Budget and Finance Committee can anticipate any questions that may come the city manager and budget Budget and Finance Office's way, that that's prepared, and that we get a preview of sort of the slides and what's going to be discussed, and if they need to be presented differently based on what we anticipate the council may have questions about, that would be a time to essentially do a dry run in prep of whatever it is you're going to end up presenting, not to alter the content per se, if that makes sense. Understanding that there's not going to be time to make any adjustments, et cetera, at that point.
Okay. Anybody else? Karen? Ms. Oliver?
I support the proposal put forward by Mr. Baruch.
Okay, so tomorrow night we would not need to meet, and then we would get our heads together and discuss a time when we could meet prior to the March 8th meeting. Is that what that would be? To see if that's feasible and when and where we could do that.
Yeah, and just so it doesn't, again, I'm sensitive to what Mr. Shields said earlier. I think we can, hopefully hold that down to, a half an hour, 45-minute discussion. Because I know it's going to be a busy time for Mr. Shields and Mr. LeCondre.
Anybody else?
I just am worried about the timing of how we would find time to schedule such a meeting. If the school board meets on a Tuesday, that would leave us Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, right?
Yeah, I
So
think
that's just Wednesday, Thursday. So I personally know I'm busy and can't attend a budget. You could certainly have it without me, but I could not attend a Wednesday, Thursday budget and finance meeting that week.
Okay. Well, I guess the first question is, do we want to meet tomorrow night to talk further about this, or should we scratch that meeting and then discuss offline whether we meet before the 8th?
I would just suggest that Mr. Shields just send us possible times when he's available, if we can fit it into the calendar. And this assumes that obviously the school board takes action in the next, I guess, week and a day.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, I read that as we will not meet tomorrow night in the Budget Finance Committee, and then we will discuss through the procedure that Vice Chair Baruch outlined when we might meet again. I believe the school board does have a budget session scheduled for tomorrow night. Not, I guess, final action, but if anybody is yearning to go to another meeting and wants to run by the school board, I might try to attend that just to listen and hear what they've got on their minds. The second question is government operations. Ms. Connolly, you and I haven't talked about whether we would be meeting tomorrow at noon as the GovOps committee.
I'm assuming we will.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, is there any other council requests? If not, why don't we go on to the next item of business, which is the report of the city manager. Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter, members of council. There's just two things that I'd like to report on tonight, and those are to talk about the assessed value, the assessments that will be mailed tomorrow, and use that as a segue to a presentation by Ingrid Racine on the city's marketing efforts and our strategy going forward. And the two are related, obviously. The whole purpose of the City Council's putting resources towards marketing the city is to grow the city's tax base, to market the city as a great location to locate business, invest in the city of Falls Church because of our great location and the many great attributes of our community. When you look at our assessed values for 2015, and these notices again will be mailed tomorrow, one of the key things that is part of those assessments is that the amount of new construction that is now coming onto the books in terms of the city's overall assessed value. For 2015, assessed value will grow by 4.85% relative to 2014. And over half of that rate of growth is due to new construction in the city. We have approximately $65 million of new assessed value in the commercial sector, and we have about $23 million of new investment in the residential sector, principally single-family homes that you see out in the neighborhoods of tear-downs and rebuilds, improvements that people are making to their own property. And so that is a very dramatic rate of new investment. It outpaces any of our peers in the Northern Virginia area and is very important for the revenue picture for 2015. One other note I will make about assessed values, and we'll put out the details in a press release that will go out later tonight, but single-family homes will have a pretty wide variance in terms of assessed value increase in 2015. Overall, single-family homes will grow by 3.42%. But again, there's going to be a variance from neighborhood to neighborhood. Townhomes are increasing by 5.75%, and condominiums are increasing by 5.73%. Overall, commercial and multifamily property values are increasing by 2.37% since 2014. And that also is a number that's larger than any of our peer jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, again, largely because of the new construction that we have. So we'll be putting out the press release on this later tonight, and people should expect to see their assessments come in the mail later this week, probably starting to receive them on Wednesday. And so I thank the assessor for this summary information. And overall, then, with these assessed value growths, we anticipate that overall revenues will grow because our other aspects of revenue in the city are growing at not as fast a clip as our real estate values are, that overall revenues will grow by about 3.7% for 2015. And it's pretty close to what we discussed in December at the Council and School Board retreat. So those numbers have remained pretty steady as we've been trying to make these projections. But now shifting towards marketing for the city, I just want to note, as Ingrid comes forward and Rick Goff to discuss our marketing plans for the coming months, that this effort is really part of a much broader effort that the council is leading, that the council has directed to work to try to grow the city's tax base, our commercial tax base. And it takes the form of moving forward with our area plans. The council is, we had a meeting just on Saturday for the West Broad Street area plan, which would be the fourth in our series of economic development opportunity areas, where the city is creating a much clearer picture and vision for how those commercial areas in the city can develop. We have applications for new development before the city right now, and we're considering those. Our outreach to the commercial sector is ongoing with meetings with individual office and retail and commercial developers. We're planning for the future of the George Mason High School site with some outside expertise, as well as using staff to drive that visioning process. We've been meeting with individual landowners in the downtown area to discuss the investments that we intend to make over the coming year using water sale proceeds to improve our downtown business district, and we're soliciting downtown business owners' involvement in that effort, both to prioritize those investments, but also to join in and make investments on their own, so that any investments that the city makes are complemented by a business community that's aligned and shares a vision for how we can make these improvements. We also had the meeting last week with Governor McAuliffe. The mayor, Rick Goff, and I were invited to Richmond to meet with the governor just to talk about economic development in the Northern Virginia area. These are just a few of a whole series of efforts that the council and staff are working on together to try to grow our commercial tax base. But one important part of it is getting the word out, the word out to those businesses that are most likely to see the City of Falls Church as a great place to invest and to locate their businesses where they know they can be successful. And so Rick will introduce Ingrid, and we look forward to giving this presentation and having a dialogue with the council about our approach, and then we'll go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I believe most of you have met and perhaps spoken with Ingrid Racine, who's our new marketing specialist. Ingrid came to us this past October from the private sector to our Economic Development Office. Her mission is to develop and implement a marketing strategy that will raise the profile of the city in the region and beyond in a positive way. And as Mr. Shields has said, will send the message that Falls Church is a great place for new investment, new development, and new businesses that we're seeking. Now, earlier this month, Ingrid presented a draft of the proposed marketing strategy to the EDA and other folks who attended that board meeting. Representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, the Village Preservation and Improvement Society, the Planning Commission, your liaison, Councilperson Conley, and members of the EDA board provided really valuable feedback, which has been incorporated in the latest version of the presentation, which you will hear tonight. So with that brief introduction, this is Ingrid to present a marketing strategy for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Rick. Let me just open this. Oh, yes, thank you so much. Now you can actually see it. So I'm here to present my marketing strategy and appreciate any feedback you have, and I'll dive right in the interest of time. First up, an introduction to the mission and vision, the research approach I took, identifying some challenges, a SWOT analysis, and some target markets, and then going into the marketing mix, those elements that make up the actual action items of my marketing strategy. Finally, there's an appendix. I referenced some of these resources throughout the presentation. And you should all be receiving a digital copy of this tomorrow, I believe, so you'll have that. Mission and vision. The goal for marketing the City of Falls Church is to increase brand awareness, to become a desirable location for current and ideal businesses. So this is really building that foundation, getting our name out there, getting people thinking of the City of Falls Church for a place to do business. The research approach I took, I conducted interviews with identified stakeholders, many of which were you. Thank you so much for talking with me. And if you haven't spoken with me yet and still want to, I'm still doing interviews, so welcome to do so. Through these interviews, I really chose them to understand the current state of the brand and to brainstorm some ideas for marketing. I got a lot of great ideas from this feedback. From these interviews and other research, I performed a situational analysis and a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which I'll go into next. A lot of words on this slide, hence why you're getting it, but a few things I do want to point out. Size is identified as both a strength and a weakness. Small size is perfect. You can walk from one end of the city to the other. You can truly get to know your neighbors, and you can get to know the local business owners. That's very unique. However, small size means there is limited physical space for growth and expansion, and some of our target markets will identify this as a weakness. Being small probably contributed to one of our differentiators, which is the small town, quaint community feel. Our neighbors, Tysons, Merrifield, Arlington, they can't say they kept this feeling. But most of these neighboring areas have already started redevelopment, which is why coming from behind our competitors for development was identified as a weakness. I will say on our weaknesses, though, most of them are spinnable. For instance, yes, we are just starting a true redevelopment push, just as relative, of course, but that means you, prospective business owner, can be a cornerstone in the new City of Falls Church, and you can be part of this redevelopment. Very unique selling point. Jumping down to threats, I covered this a little bit with weaknesses, but a lot of our neighboring areas have already redeveloped. So they have open, modern office space, which is a direct threat to our goal of getting more office tenants. The next point, the residents of Falls Church really don't agree on redevelopment. Read any of the comments on Falls Church Times, and you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, we can't make everyone happy, but we do want to communicate and get information out there. Fact correct. The next point, school size and the impact that mixed-use development has on it is huge. It's arguably the biggest gossip topic in regards to economic development. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it spreads like wildfire. So it's really important that we're getting pieces out like mixed-use development, a model that pays for itself, for that open communication and fact correcting. Mixed-use popularity. We know that market cycles change. Strip malls were all the rage back in the day, and currently mixed-use development is very popular, which is a good fit for the city because we get the restaurant, the retail, the office space we want while getting some apartments. Now, if we hesitate too long to work with reasonable developments, we could potentially miss the boat and developers aren't interested in building this anymore. Finally, Tysons. I'm sure you're aware that Tysons has a goal of becoming a livable, walkable community by 2050. Probably saw the article in the Falls Church News Press. They already have all of the offices, and they have 4 metros. Now, as they continue to build apartments and change their street structure so they have walkable blocks, they're going to become a bigger and bigger threat to the city of Falls Church. Interestingly enough, they could also be an opportunity for us. Historically, Arlington, Falls Church, McLean, Alexandria, suburbs of DC, at least on the Virginia side. As Tysons continues to expand and boom, the city of Falls Church could be a suburb for both DC and Tysons. We're geographically located perfectly. People want to live close to the hustle and bustle in the city, but they want the great schools, they want the quaint feel, they want a small town community. So the city of Falls Church could be that for Tysons. Overall, it really is a great time for opportunities for the city. With all the proposed development and everything that you see on the opportunities, it's just going to be catalysts to get us media coverage, which will get the city of Falls Church name out there and show that big things are happening in the little city, which will attract more and more businesses. There are some challenges, starting with the Little City brand. There is little unified use of the Little City logo or brand, and there's limited support or acceptance. I think this is because there's no clear message or story behind the brand. So part of what I'll do is really personalize it and come up with a story that people can buy into and reporters can buy into. Distinct groups of interest, mentioned this a little bit in the last slide. As regards to economics development, I've identified 3 groups. You have your preservers, your reshapers, and then the middle. Your preservers are the ones that don't want any change. They want Falls Church to stay exactly the same as it is now, potentially how it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. Your reshapers are the ones who want development, and they want it now. And then your middle group. They want redevelopment, definitely the right kind. They're not quite sure what that is, and they have a lot of questions. This is the largest group, and this is the group we'll target most of our messaging for, too. However, we do need to calm the fears of the 2 extremes. Your preservers, redevelopment will not turn us into New York City. We're not going to steal all of your houses and build skyscrapers with Starbucks on every corner. And your reshapers, we are doing redevelopment. You might not see all that's happening. We're taking the steps to get the right kind. Here's what's going on. Drive-through, referring to the city's current state as a highway. Everyone drives through the city and few people stop. So as we're thinking of businesses and economic development, we're thinking of destinations that get people to stop in the city and hopefully spend their money here. Difficult to use. Our current resources are gold mines of information, but they're very long, they're text heavy, and they're difficult to find on the website. So creating more graphics and bullets and a unified branding on all of our documents to show this is a City of Falls Church, Little City brand, and making them easier to find on the website is critical to get them used. I also want to say that the current economic development pages, not the whole city's website, economic development pages are pretty stagnant. They don't encourage visitors, they don't encourage any sharing or interactivity, so giving them some more life will help out. Also, site relocation specialists come to our website as a first resource all the time. If they can't find what they need quickly and easily, they will bypass us without us even knowing. So we need to have a clean and clear, informative website. This really summarizes the whole strategy. I broke it into 3 buckets, defined them, and then set up short-term, near-term, and long-term action items for each. It's a little difficult to read, so broke it down. First bucket, identify and unify. Determining who we are, what we want, and agreeing as much as we can. So short-term, SWOT analysis of the city, interviews with stakeholders. Some of these things I've already started doing. And then an inventory of all current city businesses broken down by industry. Near term, developing a database of current and future spaces that we put online that you can search. And then once we know what we have, determining a database of what we could want, some prospects. One way to do this is through a retail leakage study. It identifies how much money city's residents are spending outside of the city in something we don't currently have. An example would be new men's clothes. Then relationships with who I call our gems. These are our city businesses that are Falls Church. We know them, we love them, we don't want to lose them. Think of your State Theater, Brown's Hardware, Clarendon's. Clearly, I didn't name all of them. The city's been very blessed and we have a lot of gems. But forming strong relationships with these people. Longer term, a unified only chamber, and it's not a real chamber. We love the Falls Church Chamber of Commerce, but it is Greater Falls Church and not all the businesses are members. So kind of having an umbrella to pull together some of the businesses so they can support each other, be aware of what's going on, and put on events with each other, which will make everyone more successful. Then launching ongoing feedback surveys to the business community. This is giving a voice to all the city businesses so they can know that they're heard and want to do business here. Not just our gems, but everyone, and having it online so it's easy to track. Our second bucket, becoming known. This is really the increasing brand awareness. Making businesses think of the city of Falls Church and want to be located here. Start off engaging with our current gems for feedback on the city and to provide support. Once we have these strong relationships with the gems, they're going to give us the most honest feedback of what it's like to actually do business in the city. They're going to be our video testimonials and our quotes we can put on our marketing collateral and be really testaments to the city. In their honesty, we'll also be able to identify how to support them and make it easier to do business in the city so we get a reputation of it's easy to do business in the city of Falls Church. Then developing the city's brand, that message and story behind the city logo. Nearer term, engaging with brokers, developers, and prospective businesses through outreach. Longer term, pulling in larger events or larger crowds to events, which will become newsworthy. Finally, getting the most bang for our buck. Utilizing the power of cost-effective tools and modern marketing. You'll notice that print advertising and advertising is not on this list. I've found that when you have the goal of increasing brand awareness, you get little to no ROI if you do advertising. Once you have that brand recognition, you're going to be much more effective in advertising. Additionally, it's very expensive. I outlined some costs in the appendix, but there are things we can be doing that are much cheaper that'll get us more bang for our buck. Starting with updating our current collateral and tools to be clearly branded and better utilized. Developing a separate economic development website and a social media presence. I'll cover that in the marketing mix. And ongoing social media online news focus. And then potentially Falls Church City business marketing, maybe a newsletter for Falls Church City businesses as kind of a value add. I'll cover that too. So I've identified a few target markets, starting with developers. Obviously critical to new development, hence the name. But having strong relationships with developers that have a similar vision will help us get the right kind of development. It's also very helpful in getting community benefits. Site relocation specialists and commercial brokers. While finding our own business tenants would be ideal, it's not that realistic. So marketing to this group helps us be facilitators instead of explorers, much more time effective. And it also gives us insight into market demand. Then our current gems. These are the people we're getting our quotes, our videos from to help us market. Prospective businesses I've broken down into 2 groups, our targets and our long shots. Our targets are businesses we think would be a great fit for the city once we've identified that list, and what we think would fit well with what they want. They already know some demographics and other businesses they like to be around, so seeing if there's a match there and doing outreach to them. And then our long shots. This is our longest shot. It's definitely worth it to be part of the conversation. All of our brand awareness we do will help us get kind of on the radar of these groups, but these are our Googles, your Amazons. I could sit here all day long and call them up, but it's not going to be effective. In order to be taken seriously, we need to potentially, if we identify this as our goal, partner with a company like a Booz Allen, who has the connections to get in there. Again, this is just for the huge name giants, if we identify that as our primary goal. And then our residents, we love them, just putting out information specifically for those 3 groups. So I've broken down our target markets based on their primary interests, some outreach tools, and some suggestive messaging. This is just preliminary. I definitely believe in testing, or trying, testing, and refining. So developers, first off, they care about return on their investment and ease of development, zoning, permitting, things like that. For outreach, media and press will be big, website and online, events, and case studies of success. Some messaging, there's some untapped market potential here, prime location, and accessible government. So it should be easy to figure out the zoning and permitting. We're very accessible. Our site relocation specialists care about a geographical location, prime available spaces that are there, and ease of access to local government. To reach them, events, website online, email, and fact sheets. There, be inside the Beltway, between Tysons and DC, and be part of the current redevelopment boom. Then we have our gems who care about affordable rent, which unfortunately don't control, engaged community, support from local government, and being heard. To reach them, email, phone, direct mailings, we've sent a few letters already, and then we're a small place, I'll walk over and do a site visit. What they want to hear is, you are loved here, you are Falls Church, your opinion is valued, and we want you to be successful. For our prospective businesses, they care about location, the demographics of the community, and we're so lucky we have wonderful demographics, incentives and taxes, and if they're a good fit, so they will be successful. Some outreach, events, email, website online, media and press, and then fact sheets. Then again, be part of the redevelopment boom, be inside Tysons and DC, inside the Beltway, first in the country in education and income, and excellent schools. You'll want to live here, so work here too. Measuring success. I will say when your goal is increasing brand awareness, it is the trickiest of all marketing goals to quantify, but there are some metrics we can look at, including online and social media analytics. PR mentions is a great way to tell if you're getting exposure. Surveying new businesses, asking them how they heard about the City of Falls Church and why they were located here. It's going to be more helpful in years to come, but we could very well hear, I read an article in the Washington Business Journal about you, like there just was. And then vacancy rate, it's a good metric to track. We already are. It's not directly correlated to marketing, but it's something we definitely want to track for economic development. And now jumping into the marketing mix. Starting with our website, AKA the most powerful tool we will ever have. It's where all of our target markets will go for information. This is currently the EDO homepage. There's a lot of information, but it's very text heavy. When I go here, I'm not really sure where to go. Nothing grabs my attention or pulls me in. As opposed to Manhattan, Kansas. I chose this example because it's visually appealing. It's pretty interactive. You'll notice the social share at the bottom, all their social media accounts. It's easy to find what you want. The I want to section could not be simpler. Additionally, it's built on Civic Plus, which is the platform that our current fallschurchva.gov site is on, and being able to share a platform would be beneficial. I will mention this site is separate from their main city sites, and most economic development sites I saw were separate. A key part of our website is our available commercial space database. This is what it currently looks like. Becky Witzman, our business development manager, has to update a Word document that then gets turned into a PDF that gets uploaded to our website. Time consuming, and it's currently, I believe, 25 pages. So are you going to scroll 25 pages to find a space? Probably not. and it clearly lacks the features that a web page would have. And it's been a desire to get an online one for a while, by the way. First is Manhattan, Kansas, back there. This is their online searchable database. You can search, you can filter by your criteria, and then when you click on one of the results, it brings up a separate listing that has multiple photos, a map. They don't have a video tour or social share buttons on there. I would propose we do. So short-term, redesigning current pages to be easier to navigate and more engaging. Creating additional pages, especially for new development. That was one of the first things I did. I created a new developments page. We didn't have a one page on our website that showed a summary of all the things that are currently being built. Planning had individual pages that were perfect for what they needed, showed all the details, but we didn't have a one page that we could send to someone and show, this is what's being built in the city. Big things are happening, because it's likely you're not driving through our city and seeing all of this. Always providing accurate information to answer questions. Then, longer term, creating a separate site that would meet our needs, like having that online database of available space, blogging for updates, maybe on our site, maybe on the city's main page, and then driving traffic to these resources. Our analytics to measure success would be increases in page visits, visitors, and time on site, and decrease on bounce rates. These are when people come to your page and do absolutely nothing. I've already started talking to our Director of Communications and Civic Plus on how we would go about creating a separate site, and that's what those two numbers in the bottom of the right-hand screen are. The implementation, customization, development costs, and then the yearly support and maintenance. Social media. Using Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to connect with current city businesses and to promote city events and news and business news. And then longer term, engaging with prospective businesses and developers and being a source of information so that reporters can follow this account and know of ribbon cuttings, know of business news that are happening. For success, increases in followers, conversations, mentions, and hashtags. An example could be hashtag WatchNightFC. Of course, coordinating with WatchNight to make sure that's the one we want. This is a screenshot of TweetDeck, which is an online portal I use to monitor the Falls Church EDO Twitter account. It's much more time effective because I can create lists. So I have a list for my home feed, notifications, hashtag Falls Church to see what conversations are happening about Falls Church. City businesses, you'll notice Body Dynamics was very active on Twitter when I took this screenshot. A city council list, AKA Phil Duncan, who's very active on Twitter, thank you very much, and competitors. See what's going on in our competitive areas. For events, attending top-known industry events, I went to the ICSC Mid-Atlantic last week, networked there, and brought along compelling event materials, which was a marketing map that showed our new boundaries, which clearly highlighted the school site, as well as all the developments we currently have with open space. Longer term, finding new events, potentially sponsoring an event or having a booth. A lot of locations did have booths at the ICSC, so I did some spying in case we want to do that at a later date. And then partnering to potentially host an event, maybe an event for commercial brokers, a meet and greet for prospective businesses with our wonderful mayor, different events like that. For success, first and foremost, leads from events attended, and then increase in attendance and media coverage of future events. Tie some things together. This is an example of a welcome sign. That's a mock-up at the farmer's market. Chalkboard. On the left, we can highlight upcoming events to capitalize on the market of the farmer's market. People are there, but they might not know of everything else we do. Maybe Watch Night, maybe First Friday, kind of promote some other events. And if there's not anything coming up, we can just have a welcome little message with hashtag Falls Church. This is part of my most bang for your buck because it's reusable. And using chalk markers, it can withstand the rain, because I know you were thinking that, and you can erase it with glass cleaner. So very cost effective. Videos. Working with Falls Church City Television and OCOM and others to create videos. Shorter term, doing video tours of our available spaces and listing those online. Video testimonials from our GEMS, developers, and city officials. Brief history and cultural overview videos, those work, play, live in Falls Church type of videos. And videos of events. Longer term, we could do year in review videos, similar to the Arlington one. I'll play a minute of each of these, so it's short, I promise, it just pumps you up. And longer history videos. So I'll start with Quebec. I chose this video because it shows the culture of the area while also tying in a business. Hopefully you can hear.
We are at the Carpe Diem. This is a former tannery, which dates from the mid-19th century. It has been beautifully restored last year, and we're in the heart of the town of Bromley, which is called Knowlton. The village of Knowlton has been founded by Paul Holland Knowlton in 1834. Because Knowlton is a part of the Eastern Townships, the Eastern Townships is the oldest English settlement area. For those who want to eat, have a good table, the region is full of beautiful dining rooms. I'm thinking about the heritage and very historic Knowlton Inn, Auberge Knowlton. And the other inn is the Lakeview Inn, which dates as far as 1874. You go there, you see a large stair. You ask yourself, why this stair is so large? Because at that time there was no heating system, and people were bringing their horse in their room.
So this video shows just kind of the culture, and also it doesn't look too expensive to produce, so we could do something quite similar, if not better. And then the Arlington video. It has a lot of ribbon cutting. It shows their year. You watch it and you are pumped up for Arlington, so we need one.
It's not news that 2014 will bring changes and challenges. Change is the only constant in life. We in Arlington have always welcomed change. Sound planning and adaptability are two of our civic strengths. This is an ambitious community. We lean forward, and we are good at turning challenges into opportunities. I'm confident that we'll remake ourselves again to embrace the challenges of the innovation economy. We have the brains, we have the heart, and we have the drive to do it. The ability to prosper through change.
And that goes on. But I watch it and I go, yeah, let's have one. Oops. Email. This will be a combination of personalized Outlook email from me and from Becky Witzman, and then also HTML email as well. Developing lists for our real estate news bulletin. It's in the appendix, but currently we have an Outlook list that we send it to. So I'm working with the Office of Communications to get it on our website so we can automate that process and have people subscribe to it, just like the main city's newsletter, which will increase our reach. Then creating a list for just outreach email and collecting all city business email addresses. This is critical to send out meeting reminders, as we see would be helpful, or sending out news we want to get to the business community. Longer term, continuing to grow that list so it can be segmented and targeted, we'll get more success that way, and creating a monthly outreach newsletter for potentially to city businesses, which would have events, tips, just kind of a value add for them. We want to see increases in subscribers, open rates, click rates, and decreases in unsubscribers. This is a mock-up of what the newsletter could look based on what the city's main newsletter looks like right now. It has just some, this is all made up, but press coverage of city businesses, and then some news the city government wants to get out around town section. It has social media, Happy Falls Church birthday of when they opened their business in the city. It's cute, kind of cheesy, but people like to see their name, and whatever we want to promote for collateral pieces. PR, focusing on news coverage via videos and articles in newspapers, magazines, and blogs instead of traditional advertising. A lot of great messaging. We could do big growth or smart growth in the little city, small town charm inside the Beltway, of course, any openings or ribbon cuttings we have, but working with the Department of Communication because reporters are so busy. If we can give them a story, we'll increase our chances of getting in their publication. Some publications we could want to be in, Washington Post, Washington Business Journal, Yahoo Business really gets us a great national exposure. Viva Tyson's and Washingtonian will want to track mentions and visits to our tracked URLs. And then the appendix I mentioned. This is really hard to read, but the cost of advertising, this is for the Washington Business Journal. If you want to do a quarter-page ad and not commit to spending any more money, it's over $4,000. That's a lot. Our rebranding, our pieces looked like the Word doc on the left, added some charts, added some graphics, added the logo, gave it a unified feel, and made it the piece on the right. This is our news bulletin, just made it feel more like a news bulletin, and added some more images. You might have noticed on all of my slides the little city logos in one color. Well, I do love the 12 colors that's in the other one. In some instances, it will pop better if we use a single color. So when appropriate, using one or the other, which we'll establish. And this is how it could look on a mock-up of the website. And then the Transforming Tysons, just as a resource for you, if you want to see some of the report, I took some screenshots of some of the things I wanted to highlight that I thought were quite interesting since I decided to read their whole report. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a very thorough presentation. Really appreciate all the effort that went into that. Let me turn the lights up and see if we have some questions
that
or
would
comments.
be great.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Are there comments or questions from members of council? There's a whole lot there to absorb, and we thank you for all the effort that went into that. I'm sure it was quite amount of work. Any comments from questions? Mr. Duncan, did you have something? Want to start?
Sure, I'll be happy to start. Thank you, Ms. Ingrid. Lots of good stuff in there. And I just made a few notes as I went through. It probably would be more efficient for me to just talk with you after the meeting rather than ramble through them. But a couple of things I wanted to bring out tonight. One is the business of print media, print advertising is, we hear what you're saying, I think. One thing that is unique, and it truly is unique about Falls Church, is that we do have a small town, sort of courthouse, city hall newspaper. And I think we're all obviously aware of that, and at least it's my observation that if it's not in the news press somewhere, it hasn't really fully, completely happened. And we just need to be aware of that and take advantage of it somehow. Increasingly, there's traffic on the news press online side, so perhaps there's some migration or melding of the old and the new. Maybe there's some things we can do online in the news press that are complementary with some of the things you're suggesting to us. That's just one thought. A couple other little things. The chalkboard is a cute idea, I think, and I've often thought as we stand around town waiting to get into Mad Fox or waiting for our kids at the community center or up at Baskin Robbins, it would be nice if we had some sort of message board technology. I guess I was thinking it might be electronic, something that we could push a button here in your office and send out a message that would appear. I saw this when I was taking my daughter college visiting about 4 or 5 years ago. I think Princeton has a pretty highly evolved system where everything messages all across campus at message boards at key locations. I thought that might be something that we might try to do here. And I guess finally, measuring success, quantifying success. That is, of course, the most important thing, because we need to justify the salary that we spend on your job and on the whole EDO office and on the planning department, especially those. I know when we spent some money a couple of years ago on planners to work on small area plans, I remember the vice mayor said, how are we going to know that they have succeeded? And I thought that was a good question, and I think we are beginning to see some signs of a return on the investment that we've made in the small area plan process. But I think we should try to keep very focused on that. And at the Saturday morning event at the Columbia Baptist Church, where we talked about the West Broad small area plan, Mr. Snyder said increasing the FAR to 2.5 in that 22-acre stretch would have significant financial benefits for the city. And I think it would be helpful for maybe you and the planning folks to get together and develop for us a goal that we might strive towards, that would say, you know, here is what we could do by just sort of developing at a steady but a reasonable pace for the city. Here's the kind of revenue that we might generate by doing that. The presentation that the manager and the school superintendent made 2 weeks ago Wednesday about our budget challenges and opportunities sort of left everybody, I think, in the PTA sponsoring group a little breathless, like, wow, we really have a lot ahead of us here. What was missing from that, I think, was the sort of hopeful message that we do have a lot of potential and that we can do some great things and that we can, you know, generate revenues that will help us meet our needs for services and excellence in education, all the while, you know, sustaining the quality of life here, improving it even, creating more walkable amenities. So I think that final point about how to quantify success might be well connected to the small area plan process. Anyway, thanks for all your work and look forward to talking with you further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Mr. Baruch?
Thank you very much, Ingrid. I think there was a lot to think through and think about, but I'm glad to have the position filled and look forward to working with you further. I do think that it's important, you know, in some of the slides, some of the decisions and the directions that I think the council's still grappling with about where we want to see development go. I think, you know, again, I don't want to speak for all the council. I think we all are probably a little bit on the extreme of wanting to see change now, but we all have different views of what shape and form that should take.
Yes.
And what sectors we need to be targeting. I think that's a work in progress, and part of that is the area planning process. To be frank, I saw pretty, at least in the presentation now, a notion that sort of mixed use was sort of the lead, and that's part of the story, I think, for us, and perhaps some of the sectors that we're looking at and some of the area plans. But I think the council's also been very clear that we'd like to draw in more office at the right opportune periods. I know that we're going to be taking a look at the 400 North Washington Street project, which is 100% all commercial, and we know that there's been other developers that are interested in doing all commercial buildings in the city, and we need to figure out a way of welcoming them and really beginning to focus in on some of that market, understanding that there may be a glut outside of our borders right now with office space, but there may be a way of marketing to local businesses who want a different environment. So I just think we need to think through that before just kind of jumping on the mixed-use bandwagon, if you will. I do think it has its place, but I do think, as I've mentioned numerous times, there are some potential drawbacks with that approach as we move forward, and that we need a bit of a mix in what we're looking for. So I think we may need to look at some of the basics behind it and some of the planning and just making sure that we're in sync as that aspects of the marketing plan goes forward. So I think we may want to have further discussions, and I think two places to potentially have a more in the weeds discussion about this would both be in the Economic Development Committee of the Council, also with the EDA as well as the Planning Commission, kind of diving into the marketing plan a little bit more, helping to refine it, and as well as the Budget and Finance Committee, because they touch upon sort of what is our monetary need that feeds in to some of our planning efforts as well. So I think we're sort of on the right track, but I think we need to shape where we're headed a little bit more too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baruch. Ms. Conley?
Thank you very much, Ms. Racine. I saw your presentation at the EDA, and I like the tweaks that you made here. I appreciate your energy and enthusiasm that you bring to this project. One thing I really like is that you're taking what we have that's good and working on making it better. So the farmers market is really good, and there's a way to market the rest of the city from the farmers market. And the other festivals and events, I think they bring a lot of people to Falls Church, and we want to keep them here and do more things. So I do appreciate that you're taking the good stuff and making it better. And I echo Mr. Duncan's questions about the measurement and how it will look, and I look forward to working with you on all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? I've got a comment or two. Some of this I've given to you privately, but I would echo what I've said earlier about having the city speak with one voice, because there's the EDO we're hearing about today, but then we've also got a city office of communications. And I think it's important that the efforts be coordinated so that whatever comes out in one voice. People come to one place to get information and not have to figure out, well, there's some really good stuff over here, but I'm not going to get to because I'm going to this page for city information. And so I think you all have to find a way to work together and coordinate so there is one message that goes out, whether that's everything on one web page or a separate web page, I don't know, but I would just encourage you to continue, and I'm sure you've done that and are doing that, but continue to do that. I would also echo Mr. Baruch's comments about I think we need to have more discussion about kind of our focus about new development and the like. I would suggest probably that our efforts ought to be more towards marketing, office, retail, hotel, the kind of pure commercial, because we've had a pretty good knack for attracting mixed use already without a lot of marketing efforts. And so I suspect that probably the will of council would be to try to direct new development to things that are really accretive to us financially and what we don't have right now, which are pure commercial projects so much. So that's something I think a dialogue we can continue to have as we go forward. But again, I'd like to compliment you for all your fine work you've done and for coming out this evening with us, and we look forward to working with you. And unless there's any other comments, Ms. Oliver?
I just wanted to ask that I think that the EDC in particular has talked about trying to identify the targets that we would like to see. And I know that within our economic development work, we do tend to focus on where can we get the most money from a particular developer or project or commercial site. I guess I would also like us to think a little bit more broadly about how we can create and sustain our sense of place, that this is not just about bringing in the store that will turn over the highest volume, but also about bringing in the smaller store that creates a sense of connection to the store next to it and the store next to it, so that this is a place where people want to spend time and not just drive in and drive out.
Definitely that balance.
Anything else? Again, our thanks for coming out this evening. We all look forward to working with you going forward.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay.
And those were the two items I wanted to do for the manager's report. And just one follow on this one. I think one thing to think about in terms of marketing and its relationship to the rest of everything else that we do, we're all in charge of product development, and the EDO is in charge of helping to go out and try to sell that product. And as we're doing more of that, and talking more with businesses that we think are likely to be able to come here, we're going to get some feedback as to what our strengths are and what we can really build on. And we'll want to keep that feedback going so that our product development is more and more geared towards what we think we can bring here in terms of new recruitment, and keep that positive momentum going.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Did you have some, Mr. Duncan?
Just one, are we still on questions to the manager?
Sure.
Separate topic, one of our other committees, EDC, which meets this Thursday night. I understand from your email that one of the agenda items is the project at Broad and West on the Sharif property. And I noticed in today's online news press that there's some pictures of a possible public use being integrated into that proposal. Excuse me, is it thought that we might have any even very preliminary numbers on the cost of that use by Thursday? I'm just thinking that with this out in the community now, people are going to be asking, and I don't have a ready answer, and I feel like maybe we ought to at least communicate that we have some notion, if that's possible.
We do have, the developer has offered some preliminary numbers, but we've got a lot of work to do just to, the whole overall deal structure has a lot of components to it. And so that number is really important, but the overall, what that deal structure could look like, we also need to explore. And so I think the EDC is a good place to have that discussion, and then we'll take it from there.
I guess if we're going to add that as part of the discussion, and I have to say I'm sort of a little bit surprised about this option coming on without it being fully vetted out, in the sense of I still have no idea if this option goes forward what we're going to do with the current property. My understanding, unless something's changed in the last, however many years it's been that we've been talking about this, what happens with my understanding is that if the current building is not used for library purposes, then it reverts back to the family. I don't know if there's been any discussions with the family if that were to happen. Two, are we talking about operating two branches of the library that are being segmented off? How we're going to be funding that? So, I don't have strong views about this option right now because I just don't have enough information about it, but it's coming out publicly, and we haven't even seen the cost figures. We haven't seen what the ramifications are for the current library, and I think the last time we heard from the library board, they were somewhat opposed to this notion. So, and now we're seeing it as part of the application, or at least an option. But I think some more work needs to go into that, and some fundamentals of cost, current library, what happens to it, and where is the library board on this? My understanding of the city charter is that the library board, or the library board of trustees, actually has, it's not just an advisory committee, that they have certain roles and responsibilities that go beyond some of our other boards and commissions, and I need to get a better sense of that. So maybe our city attorney can help us get a little bit better understanding of what their roles, responsibilities are under the charter, and also under there may be a separate charter for them as well. I think we're sort of on uncharted territory, if you will, on this. So I just want to make sure we get that we really get a sense of what the lines are on that.
Well, I think those are all good questions, and we are very much at the 30,000 or higher foot level on this concept. And I think some of the first discussions is conceptually, does this merit further consideration? And I think if we can nail down a couple of the facts, then that will help inform the council and the library board of trustees about whether or not to pursue it further.
So, and I'll go to you just a second, Vice Mayor Snyder. So you've got some good questions that were just raised. I think in preparation of our further discussion of this, if you can try to get some answers to some of the questions you just heard by the next time this comes up, I think that'd be very helpful to have an informed discussion.
If I may, I'd be remiss not to, and Mr. Shields, you've sort of heard me about this before, and I think I've mentioned it publicly as well, that the Mason Road project is forever shifting, if you will, and we're about to engage in other public dialogue, but yet it's potentially taking a drastic turn, which I'm not going to judge it for what it is because I haven't heard the full story, but it's another major shift. And every time we as council members get questioned about it, I never get the sense I know where this project is headed, so we can put it on one path for an up or down vote because it keeps shifting. And that's to be expected on any given project, but this one just keeps shifting and shifting and shifting and shifting. And I worry that at some point we're either going to get to a point where the community is going to stop engaging because they don't know where the project is and they don't know when to provide input. So they get into perpetual change mode and not weighing in, and then it we lose out on that, or we never get to a point where we say, okay, this is sort of where it's at now, and this is where we need engagement from the public. And so far from the items that I've seen, they're not sort of minor items, but now we're talking about potentially a library, which again, may be something that's ultimately a good option. But I'd be remiss if I didn't share a little bit of frustration that I have about how this process is all shaped up about this building, about this particular development.
All right, Vice Mayor Snyder?
Thank you very much. I would just indicate my support for the questions that Councilmember Baruch has asked. And all this is about is collecting data. Can you get more library and pay less than the current proposal that's been talked about? Can you do it without perhaps splitting functions, without losing the existing site? These are all questions. The fact of the matter is that modern libraries tend to be dramatic architecturally, tend to have large open spaces. Whether that's possible in the existing building, even spending $8 million remains to be seen. And actually, the project is more like $11 million. So all of this is merely about collecting data for the community to look at, for the library board to look at, for this council. This particular project is the one that seemed to be moving forward, and so if you're going to flesh out an option with dollars and real-world data, you got to do it with a live project, and this is the one that is right now. So for me, I just want to underscore that this is a data collection effort with no prejudgment whatsoever, and let the community just take a look at the data and make the decision the way we do with full openness, hearings, et cetera. So that's all that's about. I wanted to switch gears briefly and just commend all of our employees and volunteers who have worked during very difficult weather conditions, especially the drivers who are out there with the plows, the emergency services, the people who work the homeless shelter, the people who work in our parks. You all deserve a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation, and I don't want to let things go by. I know we're not quite out of the winter yet. But I hope we can give each person that's involved in this some sort of recognition for the work that they do for us. It's circumstances like this that really bring home what our public servants, our career servants, as well as our volunteers do for the community. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to recognize that later, but I wanted to mention it tonight. Thanks.
Okay, let's go. All right, quickly.
Sorry to belabor this point, but I think it's pretty important. Vice Mayor Snyder, I appreciate the points that you were making about the Mason Row. What does concern me is I'm looking at the newspaper article, and I know that this is not the sense of the council, but I think, again, to your point, Vice Mayor Snyder, it's really important that the public know that that this is an option that's being looked at, that there's not enough data there, because we do have a developer, at least who in the paper is being quoted as a library, quote, a library would be very beneficial use in the project like Mason Row, and then goes on to say it would be increase the visibility and the profile of the library while providing it with a compatible, affordable new space with plenty of parking, end quote. So, that's at least, maybe added to context from the developer, but that's what the news press is reporting right now, at least online. And, in my view, at best, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, this is at least an opportunity to look at whether there's a there, not that there is a there, which is where the developer may seem to be leaning. And I just don't want to have a disconnect with the developer if certain council members may not ultimately be supportive of this notion, or the community may not be after we get the data. So I just want to put it out there that,
Okay.
that it is a data call at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I think that point has been made and hopefully understood. Why don't we go ahead and get on with the business on the agenda? It's almost 9 o'clock and we haven't even started the main course of our meal here. So, Madam Clerk, can you call the first item, please?
Yes, under second readings of ordinances and other items requiring public hearings, we have TR 1505, resolution approving an amendment to the 2005 comprehensive plan to incorporate the Parks for People plan as an update and replacement of the Parks, Open Space, and Recreation chapter.
This item is before the council for action, and Paul Stoddard will give the staff report.
Sure. If you can, is this the same report we've seen a week or two ago at the work session?
Yes, it is the same as at the work session.
All right, if you can, maybe just abbreviate it just a bit. I know some members of the public may not have seen it at the work session, but in the interest of time, if you could maybe pick it up just a bit, it'd be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see, this, okay. Before I get started, I'll just draw council's attention to a couple changes that have been made in the draft plan in response to the work session. What was that, 3 weeks ago now? Page 18, you'll see there's been language that's added to specifically state that this is not a budget. Instead, it's sort of a plan and a guide, and that it remains flexible to opportunities and funding challenges. And also pages 29 through 31 have been completed. Those are concepts of what are available and what's trending in terms of sort of park ideas, in terms of parklets, plazas, play streets. And page 25 then states that these are ideas and they're starting points for conversations for what things may look like, but they're not final designs. So with that, I'll jump into the presentation, and at council's request, I'll hit the highlights. So why parks? Parks have a number of benefits to multiple things that speak to quality of life: social and health benefits, environmental benefits, and even economic benefits. They're important for business attraction. What's in the presentation: motivating parks, a little bit about what the comprehensive plan is, what is the planning process that was used, what should the future park system be, what are the priorities for implementation, and then ending with any last-minute final questions from council before action. The comprehensive plan, it's a guide. Like it says in the comments in the chapter, it's not a budget, it's not set in stone, but it is a guide of sort of what's most important to the community and what are the first steps to take. Vision and goals. All of the chapters, they deal with different subject matter, and within each of those subjects, there's a set of vision and goals, some analysis that goes into what the city has today, and then a prioritized work plan. What are the first steps to take in realizing that vision? What was the planning process that was used? There was a kickoff with the sort of key boards and commissions, brainstorming that included all boards and commissions as well as the entire community and civic groups, prioritization process that, again, we went out to a mix of boards and commissions and the public, and then here we are in February coming through with the final adoption actions by the Planning Commission and now the City Council. The overall vision for the park system is to create a connected park system where you've got nodes and connections. Nodes are where sort of the major functions happen. No individual node has everything, but combined you get a complete system and a complete set of offerings. And then the connections are actually very critical. It allows people to enjoy the parks no matter where they are in the city. It allows them a park-like setting on which they can traverse from one piece of business to the next. The draft vision statement, which I will take the time to read out because it's a quote, build upon existing parks within the city to develop a well-maintained, safe, and connected park, open space, and recreation system that provides a range of amenities, enhances natural ecosystems through the use of green infrastructure, and contributes to a sense of place by enhancing and relating to adjacent land uses. And so the goals that go along with that: maintaining the parks, acquiring new space, enhancing recreational programs, taking better use of natural areas, green infrastructure, safety, and then making sure the design works for the related uses. That individual pieces of infrastructure are not important by themselves. They're important for how they relate to the things around them in the community. So different parks, different nodes within the system would fill different needs, and some nodes could serve more than one. But you'd have parks for recreational, playing fields. You'd have parks for placemaking. These are sort of places people go and gather, social gathering points. Parks is infrastructure. We talked about green infrastructure. This can be stormwater management. It can also be transportation. And then recreational facilities, whether they're larger items like swimming facilities and indoor fields, or sort of smaller things like frisbee golf and community gardens. And so transforming what the city has today in the existing park system into a future park system, right, that focuses on sort of access, it's on connections, it's on amenities. So again, taking what the city has today and then building upon that. And so draft policy actions, again, these are sort of the steps that are needed to take, that are necessary in order to realize that vision. Some of them have to do with funding, some of them are follow-on planning efforts, and a lot of them are building partnerships. I think that's going to be the strategy for getting a lot of this stuff done. And then draft projects. Some of them are features within parks, and then some of them are sort of the big recreational facilities. And again, a lot of these things are big ticket items, and they're only going to be done in partnership, either with private development or other jurisdictions as cost-sharing measures. And then identifying priorities. If everyone agrees on the vision, what are the next steps that need to be taken? The idea is to consolidate input from multiple places. So this was a summary of results from the public web survey. We also had responses from boards and commissions. We also had responses from another community meeting. And so the idea then and the priorities that are laid out in the plan is that they reflect a blend of all of those inputs, as well as some staff analysis of what are some of the key steps if people want certain projects, what are the policies that have to get done first. Also included in there sort of what parks to update first. Cherry Hill Park, Big Chimneys Park, those were some of the big winners in the survey. How will this be funded? There was big opposition to raising local taxes to do this, and I certainly understand that. And so what this plan really focuses on, as I said, is partnerships and using more tools to get things done, whether it's grant opportunities that the city hasn't been using, looking at ways to do crowdfunding to get people sort of interested in and buying into certain pieces of the park system, or it's building partnerships, whether it's with the city schools, Economic Development Authority, the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust, looking at private development and space on top of their buildings, or whether it's partnering stormwater projects with these things. And so summarizing why parks, it's because of the quality of life benefits that they bring, the health benefits, environmental benefits, economic benefits, building into the future park system, and then using partnerships to make it happen. That is the close of the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has, or I can go over some of the changes to the document in more detail.
Why don't we go ahead and open it up to questions, if there are questions. A fine presentation, and we certainly thank you for all the fine work you've done, and the other folks, I see Mr. Slitt back there as well, and others who've worked on this. Why don't we go ahead and open up to questions quickly if we can. Ms. Oliver?
Mr. Stoddard,
Yes.
the survey did not seem to put a great deal of emphasis on the economic benefit of parks, but I wonder whether that's because individual citizens may or may not be aware about the economic benefits of parks. Can you speak to that?
Sure, I can. I do believe that's part of sort of the education and messaging that I think is important, and I think that's one of the partnerships we can make amongst the Economic Development Office as well as the Office of Communications, is sort of how do all of these pieces about quality of life feed into economic development. Sort of the ideas of business attraction are not necessarily about incentives, which can be fleeting, but making a place that has a sense of place, that a place where people want to be. People are willing to pay a premium to be in nice places.
Thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you. Just one question. I'll be brief. Thank you, Paul, for including a couple of the things that I'd asked for. I'm looking at page 16, the consideration of the city's needs for baseball fields. Warms my heart. In the second column there, a space on top of parking garage or large building could provide sufficient rectangular play space is a good thing to have in there too. I wonder if it'd be possible to render that in some way that would help us visualize what we might be able to get. For instance, on page 22, you've got a nice series of drawings about how a rectangular play field and a baseball field would fit onto the current Virginia Village land. Could you show, get with Danny and ask him, how big is a, say, tot-sized soccer space, and put it on top of a roof somewhere that's a building that we understand the size of now, and give us a kind of visual on that, so that we could, I mean, I'd like to see that become part of the standard profit package that the EDC is dealing with. I mean, anytime we're building a 6 or 7 story building, I can't see why we wouldn't want to do something with the roof that would either be a passive use or even an active use. And so if we We don't have a lot of that right now. But if we could ask for that, I think we would probably find that we could get it sometimes.
Absolutely. I think we could put that together, a sort of rendering based on sort of typical field sizes, whether it's an indoor field or a tennis court or something you want to put inside, and how does that mix with the mechanical equipment that's up there. I think that's something we can do.
Are there any other comments? If not, why don't we go ahead and open this up to public comment? Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this item? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor? Move to adopt TR 15-05.
Second.
Second. Is there any comment? If not, let's move to a vote, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Baruch?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you so much for all your fine work.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the next item if we can.
Also, a second reading requiring a public hearing, TO 15-02, ordinance to move the deadline for appeals to the Board of Equalization from the first Friday of April to the first Friday of June.
This ordinance is before the council for second reading and final adoption, and it is really just as simple as that. We want to make sure that with the assessments being mailed out tomorrow, that people have enough time to review them, work through the administrative appeals process, and then the deadline for appeals to the Board of Equalization would be the first Friday in June.
Any questions for Mr. Shields? Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Do we have a motion? Mr. Z?
Move to adopt TO 15-02.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote?
Mr. Baruch?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. Let's call the next item.
TR 1507, resolution adopting a new neighborhood traffic calming program as a replacement for the existing program last revised in November 2011.
Mr. Stoddard, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. So I'm happy to bring up the presentation again. We're in a similar situation as with the previous item. It's the same presentation as last time. I'm happy to hit the highlights.
Yeah, if you can, just keep it moving.
Sure. So again, this is an update to the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, last adopted in November of 2011. The idea behind the update is to provide us a program that better staff and the city a program that better responds to resident concerns, moving cases through the pipeline much more quickly than the existing program. And some of the items in the update are policy cleanup, whether it's the streets that are eligible, how to set study areas, prioritizing cases, talking about light solutions in addition to heavy solutions, figuring out the right dividing line between administrative resolution and public engagement, better defining the community's role in the process and the problem solving, and then figuring out a way to deal with input from different property types and different property ownership structures. The development of this policy has been very collaborative. It's included, I think I counted last time, 9 work sessions from the CACT, 3 work sessions with the City Council, and 1 with the Planning Commission. It's based heavily on literature reviews and best practices from other communities, phone interviews with other planners. And the idea is to restructure the program into this sort of pipeline approach where we quickly identify the study area, we quickly move through staff review, decide whether it's an administrative case or whether it needs to go to the larger public engagement process. If so, get the community working group stood up quickly, immediately proceed into data collection with some predefined items, use that data to prioritize cases, and by this point, what we have at this process then is a case that we know is a high priority and we know it has a lot of buy-in from the community, so we can move it very quickly. As part of moving it quickly, there's a breakdown between light solutions and heavy solutions. Light solutions designed to be things that are lower cost, can be more nimbly designed, and also changed if necessary, versus heavy solutions which require more engineering. They're they're more expensive to build, and if they do need a change, that's a more laborious process. Sometimes you need the heavy solutions, but there's an emphasis with this new program to try and use the light solutions first, especially if they're going to be just as effective. And so we talk about the community role. That's a lot of it's identifying support in the community. The petition with a large percentage of the property owners, using the community more in the solution development, and then figuring out how to communicate a defined role for someone to communicate the decisions of the group back to staff. Eligible streets, expanding it to include everything except for Broad and Washington to close up a gap where some streets are currently uneligible for this program. Study areas, using predefined shapes to better move through this process. Currently, this is one of the sources of delay and confusion and frustration is setting study areas. So setting this up by a policy adopted standard moves us through this hurdle more quickly. Separating out traffic control, which is about assigning right-of-way and working within the existing right-of-way as the administrative realm, versus traffic calming, which is about neighborhood character as being the public engagement realm. Case prioritization, relying on literature that relates the sort of risk to a pedestrian of a severe injury to the speed that a vehicle is traveling when the collision occurs, recognizing that that's not a linear relationship and prioritizing those cases that present the greatest risk to pedestrian traffic. Breaking out light and heavy solutions, as I said, sort of the light, more nimble, less expensive options versus the heavy, more expensive engineered options. And then different property types, figuring out how to deal with owners and renters, single family, multifamily, small lot, large lot, representation when you have a condo building, and then residential, commercial, and retail land uses. So as I mentioned at the beginning, why update the program? This is designed to better address resident concerns, and it's some policy cleanup items related to some gaps in the existing policy. And if I could, I do want to address a letter that was sent in today by the Village Preservation and Improvement Society, and I know Keith Thurston is here. Has he submitted a speaker slip? So I don't want to speak for him, but I do want to highlight some changes staff is recommending in response to that letter. Do you have the updated draft, Clerk? Thanks. So I'll actually jump to point number 2 first because that's the easier one, which is traffic management with new development. And you'll see at the you'll see at the top of page 3 in the red text, there's a sentence that begins, "Further, this program does not restrict the authority of City Council, the Planning Commission, or City staff to implement traffic calming in coordination with land redevelopment projects." It was never the intent of this program to restrict the ability to sort of do traffic calming jointly with development. This sentence just clarifies what the position was all along. On the first point, I did have a phone conversation with Mr. Thurston before the meeting tonight, and I think both staff and VPIS were in sort of the same position, although I'll let him clarify, that we're both interested in moving forward high priority cases where there's a consensus in the neighborhood to do something quickly. And that's the intent of sort of doing the data collection up front so that we don't have to go back and get any data that we're missing. It also is key to the prioritization process that if we want to identify the highest priority cases, we have to make sure we go out and collect the right data and the same data for all neighborhoods. Otherwise, we don't have an apples to apples comparison in terms of figuring out which cases are most important. So with that, if there are questions, I'll take them now.
Mr. Brooke?
Yeah. Well, I think I had a slightly different read than the first sentence, the one that's note that this NTC program does not restrict the authority of city staff to address immediate safety concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading that to mean that I understand that Mr. Shields has got sort of authority to address emergency traffic calming situations outside of this process altogether. So it was never a priority, but sort of something comes up where it needs to be addressed, he can essentially, without going through the entire process of the local street voting on it and bringing an application forward, he's got the authority to act under the charter. I read that sentence to just basically acknowledge authorities that the city manager and city staff already have.
Yes, I'm sorry, are you reading off of the sort of separate one sheet, or are you reading out of that?
Yeah, I'm reading off the draft that I hope that we're going to be voting on.
Yes, so it's the, what I'm gonna, staff is asking for council to vote on is this document with a replacement page 3.
Right. So am I understanding the intent of the replacement language correctly?
Yes, I'm sorry, and I was being a little unclear when I spoke, because there are 2 sentences highlighted in red. The first sentence highlighted in red is exactly what you said. It's just an acknowledgement of the city manager's authority to address immediate safety concerns. The second sentence in red is the response to the letter from VPAS,
Okay.
which states that this program does not restrict the city from doing traffic calming in coordination with development.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was an issue that, at least the first sentence is one that I had raised before, that, my expectation was outside of this, the city manager was still going to have his own responsibilities, that he wasn't going to just turn to this process when there's an urgent situation that are, at least my expectations as a council member would be, if something comes up that needs to get addressed, it gets addressed through the authority that the city manager already has outside of this process.
Yes, this program is not intended to shirk responsibilities in any way.
Thank you.
Any, excuse me. Any other questions? Ms. Connolly, then Mr. Duncan.
Mr. Stoddard, we had talked about the spillover traffic concerns. Did you find this spot in here where it would fit?
I was mulling over your thoughts from the work session, and I did sort of stumble upon a passage where I think it would be a good fit to consider your concerns. On page 4, on the right-hand column, 3rd paragraph down, beginning with the text, "The working group is responsible." So there it reads out, "The working group is responsible for developing a context-appropriate solution that is effective, cost-efficient, and acceptable to the neighborhood, and balances transportation needs of other users of the street." And then what I think could be sort of an appropriate response to your concerns is adding a sentence or adding a clause that says, "and considers possible spillover effects onto adjacent streets." It doesn't say that all spillover effects can be eliminated, but it does say that the solution has to consider those things and how would they be addressed.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the light and heavy concept, I think, that's articulated in the document as a matter of policy. Since I was not able to be here at the work session because my flight was canceled, I just want, for the record, and with all of us here, to make sure I understand the status of the Kent and Parker Street project, which has already gone through the light phase, and it's my understanding that money's been appropriated and plans are underway to implement the heavy, if that's the right way to describe it, the next phase of work. Is that, am I right about that?
You are correct. And so the plan is, right, that was a neighborhood-approved design. Council appropriated funds for it. City staff began by painting the curb extensions in advance of the opening of the school year to get something in there quickly. And now staff is still proceeding with construction of the physical curb extensions, the concrete curb extensions. And this actually provides the city an opportunity to assess the impact of light and heavy solutions. We have data from before the paint was done. We're working to gather data now after the paint has been applied, and we'll be able to gather data again after the concrete is put in. So this will give the city a good sort of data set of what happens when you do these varying approaches.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification. I just want to say a personal note. When I came here in 1985, I shortly thereafter joined the Transportation Committee, and had we had a document like this back then, many of the past 30 years battles would have been obviated. We would have had, a plan and a response. It's taken a long time to get us where we are now, but I think it's very great that we are at this place, because as we proceed, developing our commercial corridors, it's just vital that we preserve the safety and integrity and character of our residential neighborhoods, and your document that you present here will enable us, I think, to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. If I could, actually, I want to make a plug for the CACT here. You talk about sort of the past trials of the city, and the CACT's support and knowledge and experience has been very important. And I think it shows in this document that sort of highlights some of the concerns that have come upon in the past. And I think that this policy, because of the CACT, does respond to those things.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? If not, why don't we go ahead and open this matter up to the public? I know we have one speaker slip, Mr. Thurston. You're welcome to come up. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this matter? Please put in a speaker slip, and we'll be glad to listen to what you have to say. Welcome.
Good evening. Keith Thurston, 1015 Birch Street, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Village Society. First, I'd like to say that city has done a great job on the snowplow work. Every time it seems like we exceed the surrounding jurisdictions on clearing the streets, and it's really a nice service to have. Even though the piles of snow are doing a great job at traffic calming, if you notice through the neighborhoods, it's a side benefit to this. Mr. Stoddard did address the questions that we had on item 2 specifically, which is very helpful. But I'd like to bring to your attention and I think it was expressed by some of the members of council, that as we develop higher density development on the main streets, that traffic calming in the neighborhood is part of the holistic solution. It's not a separate one. So our intent on writing the letter was to make sure that the city is moving towards a position of leaning forward on traffic calming rather than what we had before, which was kind of a backlog. It appeared to be resistance, and sometimes it's budget related. So getting through the process fast or getting an answer fast is important. The second half of it, though, is having the funding to put in these solutions. So the light solutions, you may have easy money that paint's not all that expensive. But if you're going to put it in curbs and bump outs, that's more money. The current budget process for that is using proceeds from the water sale. That's not a permanent solution. So I suggest that as we move forward on this, that you look in the budget documents and build into the operating budget money each year to do traffic calming, because it's not, in my opinion, having seen this for a number of years, it's not overzealous neighbors. These are real problems that are being caused by one issue or another with cut-through traffic and or traffic that's too fast. So having the money to solve the problem is part of the solution. Otherwise, you have the backlog of frustration of the neighbors feeling like nothing's being heard or nothing's being done. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much for your time. Are there any other questions or comments? Is there any other member of the public that wishes to address this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Unless there's anything else from council, why don't we go ahead and entertain a motion? Is there anyone who would like to put forth a motion?
I move approval. I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Ms. Oliver?
I move that we adopt TR 15-07.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Z on the second?
Could I just ask, is that motion to move it with the amended text on page 4?
With the amended text on page 4.
Okay.
Was there on 3 too?
Page 3.
Page
3 and
Page
4?
3.
Yep.
All right, let's try this again.
I got it.
I move to adopt TR 15-07 with the amendments proposed on pages 3 and 4.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote?
Mr. Baruch?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. You call the next item, please?
Sure. TO 1503, ordinance to authorize participation in VACO VML Virginia Investment Pool Trust Fund for the purpose of investing monies belonging to the city or within its control other than sinking funds in certain authorized investments in accordance with Section 2.2-4501 of the Virginia Code.
Thank you.
And our city treasurer, Jody Acosta, will give the staff presentation for this.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you.
How's everyone tonight?
Good.
Mayor Tarter, members of the council, I come before you tonight to present the ordinance, TO 15-03, with a very long title. I apologize for that. This is basically the Virginia Association of Counties, VACO, and Virginia Municipal League, VML, have joined together to establish a new investment program for local governments, and it's named the Virginia Investment Pool, or VIP. VIP was established as a local government trust fund under IRS Code Section 115, and it was created under the Joint Exercise of Power Statute of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The program basically will allow political subdivisions to invest jointly in relatively short-term, 1 to 5 years, conservative fixed income investments that are authorized under state law. The trust was initially established by founding members, City of Chesapeake and the City of Roanoke, by a trust agreement, which I think is in your package as well, dated September 13th, 2013. And it includes member investors from our neighbors, Arlington County, Fairfax County, the City of Alexandria, as well as other Virginia counties and cities. The VIP was created the same way as the VACO VML Virginia Pooled OPEB Trust, which was established in 2008 by founding members Fairfax County and Henrico County, and which is now the largest pooled trust fund of its kind in the nation. The VIP was established as an alternative to LGIP, or the Local Government Investors Pool. It's designed for funds which can be invested for 1 year or longer, so your longer-term reserve funds. It has semi-monthly liquidity. You can take out money 2 times a month. It's not as liquid as LGIP. LGIP is 100% liquid, which, you know, as a result, the yield for LGIP is extremely low. The December 31 market yield was 0.1000%. The December 31 market yield for the VIP was 0.77%. You know, not fantastic, but better than the 0.100%. Approximately 15% of the fund will be liquid at all times, so that you can, you know, take your money out as you need to. But obviously the goal would be to leave it in for longer terms. So it's a little bit longer term instruments. You earn a little bit more money. It's very safe. The VACO VML finance director is also on the board. The fund managers are public trust advisors. You know, they have many years of experience in public trust advising. And basically, right now, what we need to do is you have to get the ordinance on the books, get the ordinance passed in order to be able to participate in the fund. You have to do that, and you have to sign the trust joinder agreement, which is also part of the packet. And after that is done, then you can, you know, invest in the fund. Minimum investment is $75,000. You know, any questions? Let's start with that.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Mr. Duncan.
Thank you again. I'm sorry. I know you guys discussed this on Tuesday at the work session, but and thank you, Mr. Casa. We talked about this, the manager and I, with the representatives when I was at the VML meeting in Roanoke in October, so I'm broadly familiar with it. But just to make clear, the withdrawal allowance, the semi-liquidity that you discuss, would enable us to pull money twice a month from this new vehicle?
Right, right.
I guess my question, and maybe it's a council policy question that goes beyond, you know, what we're going to pass here with this measure, is are we ever so hard up that we couldn't put almost all of our money in a vehicle that enabled us to get funds out within 2 weeks? I mean, is there ever a situation
No,
where we need...
especially with, you know, planning, cash flow planning. No, I don't think we would ever, you know, I mean, I guess maybe, I mean, I can't think of anything that might be a time when we would need to get it out before
I know
2 weeks.
Ms. LeCondre, and you've been talking about this for a long time together, so is there, do you have any thoughts on that question?
No. However, just to err on the side of caution, I wouldn't propose putting all of the city's funds in VML. We will leave some in LGIP. We will look at our cash flow and make recommendations. We're going to come back to council with it, even though it is the treasurer's prerogative. We will come back to council and suggest how we might invest and what amounts to invest.
Great, okay.
Again,
So
to make sure that We do have protection in terms of liquidity, but also we know as a backup, we can pull money out of VML.
Those recommendations, do you think those will be coming to us, in the next month or two, or what's the timetable for that?
We would like to do it as soon as possible.
Okay, all right. Yeah, of course, as we all know, we're heading into budget season, and here in the little city, every penny counts, and so if there's any way to project forward any increase in yield that is done safely and prudently and so forth, this would be a good time to do that. Okay, thanks.
Other comments? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Quick question, does the CFO recommend we enact this ordinance?
Yes.
The city manager and city attorney?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? I'll give just a few comments. I'm supportive of this. I think it gives us new investment options. And even though the return is not significant, it's 7 times more than we're getting right now, which is amazing. And particularly since we've got a pretty big pot of money in cash. And I think it's something like $27 million, if memory serves me correctly, that's earning 0.1% right now.
Right.
So anything we can squeeze out of that, to me, is a big improvement, and we want to get the best returns we can for our taxpayers. So, the return on $27 million, I know we won't be investing every penny of that, but that's a new school bus a year that you can buy from just extra money that's sort of in some ways found money. So I'm very supportive of this, and thank you for your efforts. Why don't we go ahead then, unless there are any other questions or comments, open this up for public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to speak to this matter, please come forth now. Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Unless there's any other comment from council, why don't we go ahead and entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to grant TO 15-03 first reading, scheduled second reading, and public hearing for March 23rd, 2015, and advertise the same according to law.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call, please?
Mr. Baruch?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
And Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. On to our next item.
And we have consent item.
Just
Okay.
appointments.
Appointments, yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Z?
Thank you. I move to approve the items on consent regarding appointments.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. Why don't we do a voice, or a roll, let's just do roll call.
Okay. Mr. Baruch?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay. Any business not on the agenda? Anyone? Council member comments?
Just one, Mr. Mayor. The NVTA meets this Thursday at 6 p.m. It looks like I'll be in New York on business and unable to get back by 6 p.m. If there's any council member capable of attending, please volunteer, and I'd be pleased to do whatever briefing would be appropriate along with staff. Thank you.
So it's Mr. Duncan and Ms. Oliver, I think, are the alternates, correct? Are either one of you available at that time?
Neither one of us is available.
Is there anyone else available who's not? No? Okay. So.
Conflicts with the EDC meeting, so, we can't be in two places at once.
All right, well, let's give further study to that, but some things are what they are. Let's go on to, are there any other council member comments? Okay, seeing none, let's go on to approval of the minutes. If we can, why don't we just take these one by one, since there may be some edits on those? So the minutes of April 28th, there were some edits. Are you okay with the revised document, Mr. Baruch?
Yes, I'm good.
Does anyone else have any comments? Do you need to go? Anyone else have any comments or changes on the April 28th minutes? We have a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve minutes from April 28th.
Second? You have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Minutes of November 24th. Again, we had some edits previously by Mr. Baruch. Are you satisfied with the document? Anyone else have any comments to the document? Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes of November 24th, 2014.
Move to approve the minutes from November 24th, 2014.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Minutes of June 6, 2014. Does anyone remember that far back? Okay.
June 9th.
June 9th, I'm sorry, June 9th, 2014. Any comments? to
Mr.
those
Mayor,
minutes?
the only comment I have is if it could be added, I was absent due to business-related travel. Thank
Okay,
I'm sorry, what was the date on this one?
June 9th, 2014. That's what I have, June 9th, 2014.
Wait a minute.
Is that date wrong?
Is it wrong?
Okay. Do we have any corrections to that other than those made by Vice Mayor Snyder? Any other corrections? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt or approve the minutes as noted with the edit, Mr. Snyder?
Move to approve the minutes from June 9th, 2014.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. January 12th, 2015. Do we have any comments, edits, changes to that document?
I wasn't
Anyone?
here, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, do we have a motion to approve these minutes? Sure.
I will move to approve the minutes of January 12th, 2015.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Okay, that's done. So the next item, last item, is a closed session item. So, Mr. Shields, where do you propose we meet? Okay, so let me go ahead and pull that folder out, and we can go ahead and get in a closed session. Okay, upon a motion made by Council Member
Duncan?
and seconded by Council Member
Oliver.
and passed by a voice vote of City Council. Council wanted a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section C 2.2-3711A3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where disposition in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, Park Place. Councilmember Baruch? Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Councilmember Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Snyder? Councilmember Z? Councilmember Tartar, yes. Okay. Let's head on upstairs, and then we're going to be coming, do you recommend, Ms. McCroskey, that we come down and come out of closed session here? Okay, so we'll be coming back down briefly to come out of closed session and conclude this meeting. Thank you.